If you're looking for some focus study on the form, structure, and sense questions on the SAT, you've come to the right place. Just make sure to pause the video and attempt each question on your own first. Let's start with a verb question. How do we know it's a verb question? All of the answers are different verb phrases. And when we're looking at verb questions, we're either talking about subject-verb agreement or we're talking about tense. I can tell that this is a tense question because all of these are in a different tense. So the easiest way to go about these is to look at the context and try to find other verbs to make sure that you're in the same tense as the surrounding sentences. So if we go to the sentence right before this one, we see economists in India use, that's our verb, use an ease of living index. So we know that this is something that is still current. It's not like they used to use it. This is something they do use today. So if I'm looking for simple present tense, I would go with measures. This tool measures economic potential. And that's true. If it's used today, then it measures today. All right, let's look at another verb-based question. So this time we might be dealing with subject-verb agreement because we do have were and was, which are both simple past tense. And then we have simple present tense and present perfect tense. We might need a little bit more context here. But in general, if you have at least one matching pair, so because we have were and was, it's good to assume that you're dealing with subject-verb agreement. And what we can do is we can try testing the odd verb out. When I say odd verb out, I mean if three of them are plural, then we would choose the singular one. And if three of them were singular, we'd choose the plural one. The way we test this is using the word he or she or they. So would we say he are or they are? We'd say they are, right? And since they is plural, are, we could consider plural. Same thing with were. We'd say they were, they have been, but we would not say they was. We would say he was or she was, right? So I'm thinking was is probably the answer, but let's just double check and make sure. Again, the trick is to just choose the odd verb out. Her exhaustive chromosomal survey of plants in the Silent Valley was instrumental. Okay, so you're going to notice I skipped all this stuff. If you have a big ol' parenthetical like this, basically I recognize that we had a comma, an explanation of what the Silent Valley is, and then another comma. All that stuff is non-essential information, so we can skip through it. We could also think her survey of plants was instrumental in the government's decision. And that makes sense, right? Because a survey of plants is not they, it is a thing. We would say it. So technically, I guess we should say, he was, she was, it was, because a survey is a singular thing, aka it was, a survey was. Her survey was. So our answer is D. All right, this next one is going to deal with possession and apostrophes. I say possession because this version of there, for example, is to show plural possession, like it's their house. And this version of its is the same thing for an object or an animal, like the dog wagged its tail. So the dog possesses or owns the tail. Whereas here we have an apostrophe and then RE. So this is basically they are. And then this version of its would be it is. The concept here is possession versus contractions using apostrophes. And do you know which word is supposed to work here? So let's get into it. I'm going to see if I can get away with just reading the sentence with the blank space in it. The animal which lays eggs but also nurses. Okay, so here we're going to put the animal. We want a pronoun to replace the animal. Well, is the animal singular or plural? The animal, it's one animal, so it would be singular. So we're going to go with either C or D. And then would we say the animal which lays eggs but also nurses it is young with milk? No, we would say it's young. It possesses or owns the young, the young meaning its children. So our answer is C. Let's do one more of these as well. So this one is in the same wheelhouse. We know because we see apostrophes, we see options with apostrophes before the S, after the S, no apostrophe, no S. So this is the same kind of question. And let's do the same thing. Let's just talk about all the different answers here. So moons with an apostrophe before the S, that is singular and possessive. So it means there's one moon and that moon owns something, like the moon's dark side or the moon's cow, because there's a cow on the moon. This second one with no apostrophe would just mean more than one moon. So there were several moons. And then the third one here, if you have an apostrophe after the S, that means it's plural and it's possessive. So we would have multiple moons that own something. So like the moon's planet, for example. If there were several moons orbiting a single planet, you could say that that planet is those moons' planet. And then finally, moon, I think you know what that means. It's just one moon. So let's actually look at the context here. And this time I'm not going to skip ahead because I'm assuming we'll need the context to figure out which one of these makes sense. Earth is not a perfect sphere due to the blank gravitational pull. All right. So if we're talking about Earth, hopefully you know that Earth only has one moon and we call it the moon. So it should be singular. For that reason, we can get rid of B and C. And then it says the moon's gravitational pull. So would we want to say the moon gravitational pull or the moon's gravitational pull? Well, the gravitational pull does belong to the moon, so it would be A, the moon's gravitational pull. I saw one more of these and I just had to go in because this one's interesting. We've got a couple different words that may or may not have apostrophes. We've got the novel and we've got the poems. So let's do a quick look at this one as well. Slam poet Elizabeth Acevedo's debut novel, The Poet X, I'm going to get rid of the non-essential information again, is composed of, so basically the novel, could say the novel is composed of poems putatively written by the novel's protagonist. I also don't care about this part. All right, so my first question is, do the poems possess or own anything? Poems putatively written. This is not a noun. You cannot possess putatively, so we don't want possession, so we can get rid of B and C. And then, does the protagonist belong to the novel? Actually, it looks like it does, but do we have one or more than one novel? Let's see. Oh, we said the debut novel. So it's one novel. And if you remember, yeah, this would mean plural, so it can't be D. Our answer is going to be A, one novel. This next one, I'm going to go ahead and categorize as a pronoun question. The reason being, every answer is a different pronoun. And in case you're not sure what a pronoun is, it's a replacement for another noun. So instead of saying my lovely mother, I could say she. Instead of saying the squirrels, I could say they. Instead of saying the robot, I could say it. And then we could also use those for anything plural, like those robots over there. Technically, those is known as a demonstrative pronoun. You can kind of see how it operates a little bit differently because you might actually use it with the noun as well. Those squirrels, those robots, those angry children. But we don't need to worry about that. The main thing is we can tell that this is a pronoun-based question. So what do we want to do with a pronoun-based question? My recommendation is to find the original noun and match it. The original noun, known as the antecedent, is what we should be looking for. So we know that our underlined portion is here. Blank will even find faces in clouds. And if we go back, we notice that we have another one of those non-essential phrases sandwiched between two commas. So I'm going to ignore that. And then we get so much that, so there's no nouns there. The human brain is primed to recognize faces. All right, so now we need to figure out, is faces the original noun? Because that would be plural. Or is it the human brain? Well, what would make sense? Faces will even find faces in clouds? Probably not. The human brain will even find places in clouds? Yeah. So we know our original noun is the human brain. And the human brain is a singular thing, aka it. So our answer is C. Just for good measure, let's look at one more of these pronoun-based questions. Again, we've got different pronouns. We even have one in there, which is interesting. But let's try to find the original noun. This disparity can be explained in part by the fact that rivers such as the Mississippi expand and contract as blank sediment. Let's think about this. If we look at A, they accumulate sediment. So what's the thing that it would accumulate sediment? So starting from the underlined portion, as we go backwards, we have the first logical statement I've seen is rivers such as the Mississippi expand and contract as blank sediment. So if we're going to rename the noun that's taking the verb, what is the verb here? Well, we actually have two of them. We have expand and contract. Now, the Mississippi is given as an example, such as the Mississippi, but the main message here is rivers expand and contract. So our original noun is rivers. Rivers is plural, so we would go with they. They accumulate. All right, the last type of question we're going to cover here is known as misplaced modifiers. And if you're wondering what the heck that is, let me give you a quick example. So if we had a sentence like, putting on his socks, the dog surprised Billy when it bit him. This is a misplaced modifier. The reason is this first phrase, which is known as our modifier, is describing Billy, right? Because who is putting on his socks? Billy is. So the rule is that because Billy is putting on his socks, Billy should come right after the comma. But instead, the dog comes right after the comma. So in order to fix this, we would need something like putting on his socks, Billy was surprised when the dog bit him. So that's a very simple example of a misplaced modifier. Now, you might be wondering, how did I know I'm dealing with misplaced modifiers? Well, they're pretty easy to spot. At least I think they are. All the answer choices are going to have a different noun that starts them. And you can see that that's true. We have rabbinal achi, we have kichi achi, we have the military leader, we have there was a military leader, so existential there. So these are all different nouns starting our answer choices. All we need to do is figure out where's the modifier, usually before a comma, and then who or what is the modifier about. So here we have our underlined portion, and then sure enough, there's the comma, which means everything before the comma should be our clue. Based on events that occurred when Rabbinal was a city-state ruled by a king, based on events. So whatever starts our answer should be something that is based on events that occurred. So it's probably not a person, right? So let's figure out what's going on in context. Rabbinal Achi is a pre-colonial Maya dance. Okay, so a dance could be based on events. So let's keep A, and then the military leader, that's a person, so it can't be C. There was a military leader. That's not going to work either. Kichi Achi, the military leader, again, that's a person, so we know that it's A, again, because a dance is the only thing that could be based on events that occurred. All right, let's do one more of these misplaced modifiers. This one is a little bit less obvious, I think, because we do have two surfaces, noun, but then we have reaching surbluricity, which is technically a noun, but it's like an action noun. It's known as a gerund because this is an activity. Then we have superlubricity, another noun, but then we also have when their CFO drops below 0, so not a noun. So that one's not quite following the theme. Anyway, let's follow the rule here. Remember, we're going to find our comma, and then whatever's described before the comma is what should come right after the comma. And you can see here we've got parentheses, which is a really easy way to spot that non-essential information that we can kind of ignore. A nearly frictionless state. Okay, so whatever comes after needs to be a nearly frictionless state. So a state of being. When is not a state of being, so immediately we're going to get rid of A. Two surfaces, not a state of being. Reaching superlubricity, not a state of being. That is an activity. Superlubricity. That sounds like it could definitely be a state of being. And if we look at the stuff I crossed out, as its name implies, extremely slippery. So, like lubricant is something slippery. So, super lubricity would be a very lubricated state. That one definitely takes a little bit of word decoding as well. But if we just stick with crossing out those wrong answers, we can still get our correct answer. We do hope you found some value in those tips. And if you're looking to really boost your SAT score, you might want to consider signing up for one of our small group courses. These courses are designed for those students who thrive in a more collaborative group environment. Courses are available with 12, 24, or 36 hours of expert instruction from one of our tutors. Each course includes 5 full-length practice exams and detailed score reports breaking everything down so you know exactly what you need to work on. Go ahead and use the link in the description to get signed up for a small group course with Revolution Prep right now.